1800 hours Pakistan Standard Time. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Sadia Sattar. First, the headlines. Prime Minister addressing virtually the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly said sustainable peace in South Asia is contingent upon resolution of the Kashmir dispute as per aspirations of Kashmiri people. Foreign Minister presenting a dossier to the UN Secretary General on Indian human rights violations has said New Delhi's unilateral steps in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are a threat to regional and international peace. At the United Nations, Pakistan, firmly rejecting India's claim that Jammu and Kashmir is its integral part, has said it is internationally recognized disputed territory. The European Union has recognized the critical role of Pakistan in establishment of peace in Afghanistan. Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee says Pakistan attaches great importance to its bilateral defense cooperation with Russia and China. Palestinian president giving Israel 1 year to end its occupation of Palestinian territory has called upon the world to support his initiative to save region from unknown fate. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Imran Khan says New Delhi is engaged in efforts to change the demographic structure of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and transform it from a Muslim majority to a Muslim minority territory. In his virtual address at the 76th session of United Nations General Assembly, he said India's actions in occupied territory amount to war crimes and the crimes against humanity. The Prime Minister said it is unfortunate that the world's approach to violations of human rights lacks even-headedness and it's selective. Imran Khan said such double standards are the most glaring in the case of India, where this RSS BJP regime is being allowed to get away with human rights abuses with complete impunity. He said the abduction of 13,000 young Kashmiris, extrajudicial killings of hundreds of innocent Kashmiris in fake encounters, and collective punishments by destroying entire neighborhood and villages has become a norm in the occupied territory of Kashmir. The Prime Minister said Pakistan desires peace with India as with all its neighbors, however, stressed that sustainable peace in South Asia is contingent upon resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in accordance with the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions and the wishes of the Kashmiri people. Highlighting the threat of Islamophobia, the Prime Minister Imran Khan has urged for a global dialogue to counter rise in Islamophobia by promoting interfaith harmony. He said the worst and most pervasive form of Islamophobia now rules India. The Prime Minister said the hate-filled Hindutva ideology propagated by the fascist RSS BJP regime has unleashed a reign of terror through violence against India's 200 million strong Muslim community. He said mob lynching by cow vigilantes, discriminatory citizenship laws to purge India of Muslims and campaign to destroy mosques across India to obliterate its Muslim heritage and history are all part of this criminal enterprise. The Prime Minister called on the Secretary General to convene a global dialogue on countering the rise of Islamophobia. Warning of a looming humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, Prime Minister urged the world for mayors to strengthen government in Kabul for the people of Afghanistan and to achieve a win-win situation. He said if the world community gives incentives to them, it will be a win-win situation for everyone so that Afghan soil is not to be used by the international terrorists again. The Prime Minister said Taliban have promised to respect human rights, constitute an inclusive government and not to allow their soil to be used by terrorists. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says unilateral Indian mayors taken in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are a threat to regional and international peace and security. He was talking to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New York. The Foreign Minister also presented a comprehensive dossier to the Secretary General detailing serious, systematic and widespread human rights violations, war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide perpetrated by the Indian occupational forces. At the United Nations, Pakistan has firmly rejected India's claim that Jammu and Kashmir is its integral part. Reaching to the Indian claim, Pakistani delegate Saima Salim said Kashmir is an internationally recognized disputed territory. She said India remains in occupation of an internationally recognized disputed territory whose final disposition needs to be decided in accordance with the democratic principle of a free and impartial plebiscite under United Nations auspices as provided for under numerous resolutions of the Security Council. In a hard-hitting statement made in exercise of her right to reply, Saima Salim, the Pakistani delegate, said India's use of the canard of terrorism, regurgitating stale arguments, are typical of all occupiers. She said, "We call upon the international community to take cognizance of compelling evidence and hold India accountable for the heinous crimes." A large number of Indian Americans gathered at Lafayette Square, the park in front of the White House, to protest against the visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the U.S., according to Kashmir Media Service, chanting slogans and holding placards as said that and read, "Save India from fascism." The protesters castigated Modi over human rights violations, persecution of Muslims and other minorities, new farm laws, and Indian brutalities in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is Radio Pakistan. In Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Hurriyat leaders and organizations have hailed the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, for effectively highlighting Kashmir dispute and Indian atrocities on the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir in his address to the United Nations General Assembly. In a statement in Srinagar, APHC Vice Chairman Ghulam Ahmed Gulzar said the speech delivered by Prime Minister of Pakistan has exposed the brazen violations of UN resolutions by India and its myth of so-called normalcy in the occupied territory before the international community. Other Hurriyat leaders and organizations in their statements also appreciated Pakistan's Prime Minister for exposing Indian atrocities on the people of IIOJK. The European Union has recognized the critical role of Pakistan in bringing peace in Afghanistan. In an exclusive interview with News and Current Affairs channel of Radio Pakistan, Ambassador of European Union to Islamabad, Androla Kaminara, said that Pakistan played a key role in safe evacuation of EU nationals from Afghanistan. She appreciated Pakistan's declaration that government in Kabul must be inclusive and women should also be given representation. The EU ambassador said the bloc has been following the regional developments very closely after the takeover of Kabul by Taliban. She said the EU is interested in respect of human rights and inclusive government in Afghanistan and evacuation of EU citizens and Afghan nationals who want to leave the country. Turning to current state of bilateral relations with Pakistan, the ambassador said ties with Pakistan are multifaceted and we're working on a number of issues. Androla Kaminara said the EU is number one destination of Pakistani goods and the country exported 7.5 billion euros goods in 2019 only, owing to GSP plus status, according to Islamabad. She said the European bloc is providing assistance to Pakistan to address issues of poverty, natural disasters and other areas of concern. The weekly program Diplomatic Session is broadcast from News and Current Affairs channel and FM 101 networks of Radio Pakistan every Saturday at 6:15 hours. The show is also available on Radio Pakistan's official website, www.radio.gov.pk. Social media platforms and Radio Pakistan's podcast as well, that is podcast.radio.gov.pk. Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee General Nadeem Raza has said that Pakistan attaches great importance to furthering bilateral defense cooperation with Russia and China. He was talking to Chief of General Staff of Russian Federation General Valery V. Gerasimov and Chief of Joint Staff of People's Liberation Army China on the sidelines of Exercise Peace Mission 2021 in Russia. General Nadeem said that peace in Afghanistan is a collective responsibility and the entire region will be its biggest beneficiary. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has given Israel 1 year to end its occupation of Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. Speaking at the General Assembly, Palestinian President expressed readiness to work throughout this year on the delineation of borders and solving all final status issues under the auspices of International Quartet and in accordance with UN resolutions. Abbas threatened to withdraw recognition of the State of Israel. In Somalia, 8 people were killed and 9 others injured after a suicide car bomber detonated explosives at the Al Ghab junction near the presidential palace today. In the National T20 Cup at Rawalpindi, chasing a victory target of 153 runs set by Southern Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa were 98 for 1 in 13.3 overs a short while ago. Batting first, Southern Punjab scored 152 runs and were all out in 19.4 overs. And finally, the weather update. Mainly hot and dry weather is expected in most parts of the country during the next 12 hours. And that is the end of the bulletin. For more news and analyses, do log on to our website radio.gov.pk.